"George Clooney, everybody," Colbert announced as the applause died down. "Thanks for being here, George. I have to say, you look great for someone who's been dodging so many uncomfortable questions lately." Clooney's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Well, Stephen, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but thank you for having me." The first few minutes proceeded normally enough. They discussed Clooney's new film, his work as a director, and his recent humanitarian efforts. But seasoned Colbert watchers could sense the host was building towards something. His questions became increasingly pointed, his tone more aggressive than his usual playful banter. "Let's talk about your recent statements supporting certain political candidates," Colbert said, leaning forward with a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Some people are saying you're out of touch with regular Americans, living in your Italian villa, flying private jets to climate conferences. Don't you think there's a bit of hypocrisy there?" Clooney shifted uncomfortably. "I think everyone has a right to their political opinions, Stephen. I've been consistent in my beliefs and my actions. I put my money where my mouth is." "Do you?" Colbert pressed, his voice taking on an edge that made the audience go quiet. "Because I've been looking into some of your business dealings, your investments. There are some interesting contradictions there." The actor's jaw tightened. "I'm not sure what you're getting at, but if you have something to say, just say it." Colbert pulled out a stack of papers from behind his desk, making a show of shuffling through them. "Well, let's see. You've been very vocal about environmental issues, yet your production company has deals with some pretty questionable corporations. You talk about income inequality while charging $2 million for a single speaking engagement. You criticized other celebrities for their silence on social issues, but when your own friends in Hollywood were caught up in scandals, you were remarkably quiet." The audience began to murmur, sensing the tension escalating. Clooney's famous charm was evaporating, replaced by visible irritation. "Stephen, I came here to talk about my film, not to be ambushed with some half-baked gotcha journalism." "Half-baked?" Colbert's voice rose mockingly. "These are public records, George, your own words and actions. I'm just asking you to explain the contradictions. Isn't that what journalism is supposed to do?" "This isn't journalism," Clooney shot back, his voice hardening. "This is a hatchet job dressed up as comedy. You're trying to make me look like a hypocrite based on selective facts and out-of-context information." The host leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smirk playing across his lips. "I'm just holding you accountable, George. Isn't that what you've been saying other people should do? Hold powerful people accountable?" "There's a difference between accountability and assassination," Clooney replied, his hands gripping the arms of his chair. "What you're doing right now is character assassination." Colbert's expression darkened. "Character assassination? That's rich, coming from someone who built his career on being America's sweetheart while playing political games behind the scenes. You want to talk about character? Let's talk about how you threw your weight around to get certain stories killed, how you used your influence to protect your friends while preaching about justice and transparency." The studio fell silent except for the hum of cameras still rolling. Clooney stood up slowly, his face flushed with anger. "You want to do this? Really? Because I can tell you stories about this industry that would make your head spin. But unlike you, I don't ambush people on live television." "Sit down, George," Colbert said, his tone now openly hostile. "We're not done here." Clooney remained standing, his hands clenched at his sides. "Actually, we are done. This is exactly the kind of toxic behavior that's poisoning public discourse. You've turned what should be a civil conversation into a public execution." "Oh, spare me the lecture," Colbert sneered, rising from his own chair. "You Hollywood types love to dish it out but can't take it when someone actually challenges you. This is what real accountability looks like, not the softball treatment you're used to getting." The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether this was part of some elaborate bit or genuine hostility. Several crew members exchanged worried glances, and the show's producer could be seen frantically gesturing from the wings. Real accountability? Clooney's voice cracked with indignation. You call ambushing a guest with unverified allegations accountability? You're not a journalist, Stephen. You're a bully with a microphone. Colbert's face reddened. Unverified? Everything I mentioned is public record. The difference is, nobody else has had the guts to call you out on it. They're all too starstruck or too afraid of your connections. My connections? Clooney laughed bitterly. You want to talk about connections? Let's talk about how you got this job. Let's talk about the stories you've buried, the guests you've protected because they're politically useful to you. You sit here night after night pretending to be some moral authority while playing the same games you criticize others for. The host's composure was cracking now, his carefully crafted television persona slipping away. Don't you dare turn this around on me. I'm not the one living a double life, preaching one thing while doing another. Double life? Clooney stepped closer to the desk, his voice rising. You mean like how you present yourself as this champion of the people while making millions off corporate sponsors? How you mock politicians for their hypocrisy while being the biggest hypocrite in late-night television? Colbert slammed his hand on the desk, causing his coffee mug to jump. At least I'm not pretending to be some kind of saint while protecting predators and silencing victims. The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Clooney's face went white, then dark red. How dare you? How dare you make that accusation without any proof, without any context? You're crossing a line that you can't uncross. Am I? Colbert pressed, sensing blood in the water. Because I have sources, George. People who worked with you, people who trusted you, people who say you knew things and chose to stay quiet. Sources? Clooney's voice was dangerously quiet. Now. Anonymous sources with anonymous claims? This is character assassination. Plain and simple. You're destroying someone's reputation based on gossip and innuendo. The audience was growing restless, some people standing up, others whispering anxiously. The show's band members looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to intervene or let the chaos continue. It's not gossip when there's a pattern, Colbert shot back. When there are multiple people saying the same things. When there's documentation. Documentation? Clooney demanded. Show me this documentation. Show me one piece of concrete evidence for what you're alleging. Colbert hesitated for just a moment, and Clooney pounced on the weakness. You can't, can you? Because it doesn't exist. You're making career-ending accusations based on nothing but rumors and your own twisted need for ratings. This isn't about ratings, Colbert insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Clooney's eyes blazed. Because your show has been hemorrhaging viewers, hasn't it, Stephen? Your relevance is fading, so you thought you'd create some controversy, generate some headlines by destroying someone else's reputation. The host's mask slipped completely now, revealing something ugly underneath. At least I earned my success honestly, not by trading on my looks and connections while pretending to have integrity. The insult struck home, and Clooney's restraint finally snapped. You want to talk about integrity? Let's talk about how you've used this platform to settle personal scores, how you've invited guests on just to humiliate them, how you've turned entertainment into blood sport. That's rich, coming from someone who… No! Clooney cut him off, his voice echoing through the studio. I'm done listening to your pathetic attempts to justify this ambush. You've shown your true colors tonight, Stephen. This isn't comedy. It isn't journalism. It's just cruelty. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the camera operators seemed frozen, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut away from the disaster unfolding before them. Colbert stood behind his desk, his face a mask of barely contained rage and embarrassment, realizing too late that he had pushed too far. You know what the real tragedy is here? Clooney continued, his voice now calm but filled with disappointment. I actually respected you once. I thought you were using your platform to make a difference, to hold powerful people accountable in a meaningful way. But this? This is just tabloid trash dressed up as late-night television. Colbert opened his mouth to respond, but Clooney held up a hand, silencing him. I'm not finished. You want to know about integrity? Integrity is having the courage to admit when you're wrong. Integrity is treating your guests with basic human decency, even when you disagree with them. Integrity is not ambushing someone with unsubstantiated allegations for the sake of cheap entertainment. The audience was completely silent now, captivated by the raw emotion and authenticity of the moment. Several people in the front row were recording with their phones, despite the show's no-phone policy. You've spent years building a reputation as someone who fights for truth and justice, Clooney said, his voice growing stronger. But what you've done tonight shows that you're willing to destroy that reputation for a few viral moments and some social media buzz. You've become everything you claim to despise. Colbert finally found his voice, but it came out as a weak croak. George, I was just trying to— To what? Clooney interrupted, his eyes blazing. To humiliate me? To score points with your audience? To prove that you're some kind of fearless truth-teller? Well, congratulations, Stephen. You've proven something tonight, but it's not what you think. The actor began walking toward the edge of the stage, but turned back one final time. You've proven that you're willing to sacrifice basic human decency for ratings. You've proven that you'll use your platform to bully and intimidate rather than inform and entertain. And you've proven that success has corrupted you beyond recognition. Colbert stood motionless behind his desk, his usual quick wit completely abandoned. The show's producer was now frantically signaling from the wings, but it was far too late to salvage the situation. The saddest part, Clooney said, his voice now heavy with genuine sorrow, is that you had the power to do so much good with this platform. You could have used it to elevate important conversations, to bring people together, to actually make a positive difference in the world. Instead, you've chosen to tear people down for sport. With that, Clooney removed his microphone, placed it carefully on the guest chair, and walked off the stage without another word. The audience watched in stunned silence as the Oscar winner disappeared into the wings, leaving Colbert standing alone under the harsh studio lights. For several long moments, nobody moved. The host remained frozen behind his desk, his face cycling through emotions: anger, embarrassment, confusion, and something that might have been shame. The audience began to murmur, then whisper, then talk openly about what they had just witnessed. Finally, one of the show's producers stepped onto the stage and whispered something in Colbert's ear. The host nodded numbly, cleared his throat, and looked directly into the camera. "We'll be right back," he said in a voice barely above a whisper, though everyone in the studio knew there would be no coming back from this. As the camera stopped rolling and the studio lights dimmed, the full magnitude of what had just occurred began to sink in. Social media was already exploding with clips and commentary. The hashtag Clooney-Colbert clash trending within minutes. Entertainment reporters were frantically working their phones, trying to get statements from representatives for both men. The confrontation that was supposed to be just another late-night interview had instead become a defining moment that would follow both men for the rest of their careers. Clooney had walked away with his dignity intact, having stood up to a bully and exposed the toxic culture that had infected late-night television. Colbert, meanwhile, was left to face the consequences of his actions: a damaged reputation, plummeting ratings, and the uncomfortable realization that he had become the very thing he had once fought against. The incident would spark widespread discussions about respect, professionalism, and the responsibility that comes with having a platform. It served as a stark reminder that in the entertainment industry, as in life, integrity and human decency should never be sacrificed for the sake of ratings or viral moments.